Good morning. Over the past few months, I've been kind of struggling with my faith, or more accurately, the application of that faith in my life. When Cody put me on this schedule to preach today, he gave me chapter 37 of Genesis. And he asked, was that okay with me? And I told him, sure, that'd be fine. Then I read the chapter. After he told me about told me about it, and I thought to myself, oh goodness, what am I going to do? What am I going to say about this? While I was thinking about that, I was also reading a book by A.W. Tozer. The title of the book is Whatever Happened to Worship. While reading that book, I came across a statement that Tozer made that helped me not only through my struggle with my faith, but also kind of gave me the way forward with these verses. Tozer wrote, and I quote, "You must begin with God. Then you begin to understand everything in its proper context. All things fit into shape and form when you begin with God." The words reminded me that while the 37th chapter of Genesis is something for us to learn from them, they aren't isolated from the chapters that are preceding it, nor from the chapters that will follow. Our lives are the same. What's happening today in each of our lives is not separated from what happened yesterday or what will happen in the future. Today is part of the story of our lives. We see days individually, but God sees them from beginning through the end. So my challenge today is to look through your circumstances to see where God is leading. So if you would open your book to chapter 37 and read with me verses 1 through 4. Now Jacob lived in the land where his father had sojourned in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, when he was 17 years of age, was pasturing the flock with his brothers while he was still a youth, along with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought back an evil report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons because he was the son of his old age, and he made for him a varicolored tunic. And his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, and so they hated him and could not speak to him in peace. Verse 1 tells us Jacob lived in Canaan, the land where his father lived. It was a land that Jacob lived. It was the land in which Jacob lived at first until the fight over his birthright caused Jacob to flee from his brother Esau. Jacob was separated from his family for 20 years. Even on his return, he was fraught with fear of Esau. Jacob's father, never left the land, but Jacob did. It was the land of promise. But his father and his mother chose favorites. Isaac liked Esau for the game and the savory dishes he would make. And Rebekah liked Jacob. He was an indoor man, more of a Gentile man. And there was conflict between the two. And it got to the point where Jacob had to flee. They contrived and he stole the birthright from Esau, and Esau was going to have him killed. He was going to kill him. So he left. And for 20 years, he was away from his family. How is it, and it throws me, okay, that in the second sentence it says that, it tells us that, let me get myself calmed down here. It tells us that Jacob loved Jacob loved Joseph more than all the others. How does he not, a man that lived in fear of his brother, separated from his family for 20 years, how does he not recognize and remember what favoritism looks like in a family? What causes what kind of problems those things cause? And how does he not recognize that in his sons? As his sons are hating Joseph, and it's not having apparently an effect on Israel. He's showing favor to Joseph. What the bad report was that Joseph gave about his brothers, the Bible doesn't say. Speculation, some people, was it even a true report? But that doesn't follow with any of the verses, any of the words that the Scripture gives us about Joseph. That puts it outside of his character. It doesn't talk about Joseph as conniving or misleading or a liar or anything negative. The Bible doesn't have anything negative to say about Joseph. So I'm of the mind to just dismiss that. But Joseph, the report that he did give, it doesn't say what the brothers did, but it was worthy of Joseph to bring it back, that report, and bring it back to his father. The brothers, as you can imagine, did not like the fact that the tattletale came and told Dad on them. And they were in trouble from Dad. Then Joseph receives from his father the multicolored tunic. It's not enough that Joseph, if you remember last week, when Jacob was coming back and he was going to meet Esau, and he separated all of his family and his flocks and stuff, and as he was going forward, so as they come across Esau, if he was angry, then the people in the back would have an opportunity to escape. Where was Joseph? Joseph was all the way in the back. Right from the beginning, he was putting Joseph away, keeping him as far from harm as he could. The other brothers, it doesn't say where they were. They were scattered throughout, maybe. But Joseph was in the back. Jacob was keeping him safe. The next verse tells us that Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons. Was that obvious to his brothers? How could it not be? When your parents found favor with someone over you, were you not keenly aware of that? Mom likes you better. Well, Dad likes you best. But even if they hadn't seen it to that point, they got the full vision of it when here comes Joseph wearing the coat that his dad made him. And the verse tells us that the brothers hated him and couldn't even speak to him peaceably. Does Joseph come in and tease his brothers with his new coat, or is he just excited and wears it proudly, having been given to him by his father? The Bible doesn't say, but the Bible doesn't reveal that kind of character trait in Joseph either. I'm assuming he just came in wearing it, thrilled with the new coat his dad has given him. I am challenged to understand how in all of this Jacob is not recognizing the problems he's setting up between his sons. His sons, the 10 couldn't talk to Joseph peaceably. How is it he can walk into the room and not feel the tension in the air as he comes in and starts speaking to them? As we go forward into verses 5 through 11, then Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, so they hated him even more. And he said to them, "Please listen to this dream which I have had. Indeed, behold, we are building sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf rose up and stood straight upright, and behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf." Then his brothers said to him, "Are you really going to reign over us? Or are you really going to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he had still another dream, and he recounted it to his brothers and said, "Behold, I have had still another dream. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me." And he recounted it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have? Shall I and your mother and your brothers really come to bow ourselves down before you to the ground?" And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the saying in mind. So the dreams, or through the dreams, we see God start to make his presence known. He's inserting himself, he's giving a vision for the future into Joseph for what's going to happen, what he's going to do in the years to come. But I don't know that anybody recognizes that. The brothers are enraged at the dream, and even Jacob, as he's listening to the dream, he questions, "Should we all bow down to you?" Yet did not Jacob, in his running, did he not rest near this very area, and he see the stairway to heaven with the angels coming and going? Did Jacob not familiar? Does he not remember his own visions that he had and the way that God was going to tend him, and the passing on of the prophecy through him, that through Abraham, Isaac, and then through him, the generations be named and numbered? And yet, it doesn't seem to catch on to him. He ponders it, and I wonder if he's wondering along those lines, is that going to be something that he's looking for? But we'll find out very quickly. He abandons those ponderings very quickly. We'll find those out in the coming verses here. So while focusing on the family unit and the hatred between Joseph's brothers and him, do not overlook the fact that God is inserting himself into the story. Okay? God is revealing it to them. We can't let the details of the interfamily struggles take our eyes off the fact that God is working through these circumstances. He is thinking long range. Our thoughts are very short-focused. We look to the immediate needs of the here and now. I need my food, I need my rest, I need whatever it might be. What now we look to the immediate, God looks through the immediate all the way to the end of the plan he has in store for our lives. And if we're not careful, if we're not attentive, then we can miss God's hand in the work in our lives. Each of us, even as we live today, go through struggles. Are we focusing on the struggles? Or are we looking to God to find out what's the purpose behind the struggles? What are you trying to teach me? Where am I supposed to go through this? Too often, we don't try to understand where we're at. Too often, we just curse the struggle. Too often, we're more New Age Christians. If you really loved me, you'd give me what I want. You would give me my comfort. You would give me the things that I desire. But God's not interested in giving you what you desire. He's interested in giving you what you need. He's interested in building your faith so you have a faith that knows him, that trusts him through trials and sufferings. We don't know what the end result of the suffering will be. But if our faith is in God, then we know, because the Bible tells us that he works everything for our good and his glory. So if we don't necessarily know what's going to be the end result of our suffering, we can rely on the truth that God is doing it for our good. He's not doing it just because he's a malicious God. He's doing it because he's teaching us something, drawing us through the trials and tribulations closer to him, that we will have a better life and a better understanding and a better way forward with him. Because rest assured, as these trials continue, as we get through this one, the next one's coming up, and it will demand more of us. And he uses these trials to raise us up and to build us up and make us stronger and better. In the life of Joseph and his brothers, it just infuriated the brothers even more. They couldn't speak peaceably before him before, and now it says it made him even angrier. How hard is that? None of them stopped to say, what are we trying to, what is the dream reveal? Even Jacob. Even though he ponders it, he doesn't express it. He doesn't tell the boys, settle down, wait a minute, maybe there's something God's trying to teach us in these dreams. Maybe we need to seek him and understand. But he kind of echoes what the boys say. What? Should I and your mother and your brothers bow down to you? Let's continue with 12 through 17. Then his brothers went to pasture their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers pasturing the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them. And he said to him, I will go. Then he said to him, go now and see about the welfare of your brothers and the welfare of the flock, and bring back word to me. So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem, and he found a man, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And a man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, what are you seeking? And he said, I am seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are pasturing the flock. Then the man said, they have journeyed from here, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. The brothers have gone to Shechem. Just 2 chapters earlier, we've read and we've discovered just how violent the brothers can be. Because Shechem is where their sister Dinah was raped. And it was where the brothers, after they had contrived a plan and put the men of the village in misery, went in and killed every one of them with the sword. They're right back in that same place. That's where Jacob has sent Joseph. He has sent Joseph to a place where the brothers have proven their willingness and their ability to be exceptionally violent. They have sent Joseph there when his brothers were to begin with so irritated and so angry with him they couldn't talk nice with him. They sent him there even after he had the dreams and they were infuriated by him. He sent them out there, and I'm wondering, does he understand that he sent Joseph over there and set him up for what was going to happen? Does Joseph understand the risk he's taken? He says to his father, I will go. And he goes in obedience. And it doesn't say with hesitation or trepidation. It says he goes. And he actively seeks them. And he doesn't find them in Shechem, but rather the brothers have moved on to Dothan. The purpose of that, I don't know, but I've never found anything in the Bible to be written for not having a reason for being there. And maybe Dothan was closer to the trade route or something between Israel or between the nations and between Canaan and Egypt. I don't know. Didn't have time to figure that one out. Sorry, Cody. But there was a reason. But they've gone over there. And we get over there and we continue on after starting in verse 18. And they saw him from a distance, and before he came close to them, they plotted against him to put him to death. He's not even there close enough. He doesn't even say one word. Their hatred of his is so great. He doesn't have to speak to them anymore. They just see him, and they decide they're going to put him to death. We're going to kill him. Then they say to one another, "Here comes this dreamer." Making light of the dream. Oh, yeah, like we're going to bow to him. Okay? They further show their lack of forethought, trying to any attempt to understand what God is trying to say through the dreams. They just put that aside. Here comes the dreamer. We're going to kill him. This is not going to happen. So now come and let us kill him and cast him into one of the pits. And we will say, a wild beast devoured him. Then let us see what will become of his dreams. But Reuben heard this and delivered him out of their hands and said, let's not strike him down. Let's not strike down his life. Reuben further said to them, shed no blood. Cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness. But do not put forth your hand against him, that he might deliver him out of their hands to return them to his father. So Reuben, not in agreement with killing him. He has a plan, and he's going to work around his brother's plan to murder Joseph, and he's going to find an opportunity. He's going to rescue him from the pit, and he's going to bring him back to his dad, and he's going to return him. Some say, why is Reuben got this change of heart? One of the commentaries I was reading talking about that he was possibly trying to work his way back into Dad's good graces because he was caught with one of his concubines when they were in Shechem, and that was a problem. And so they think maybe that could be part of it, but the Bible doesn't tell us why. But he says his plan is to go into him. Now what happens to him after this, where he goes away? It doesn't say, because in the next verses, now it happened that when Joseph reached his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the varicolored tunic that was on him. And they took him and cast him into the pit. Now the pit was empty without any water in it. And they sat down to eat a meal. Then they lifted up their eyes and saw, and behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites was coming from Gilead, and their camels bearing aromatic gum and balm and myrrh was going to bring them down to Egypt. And Judah said to his brothers, what gain is it if we kill our brothers and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh. And his brothers listened. So I'm not sure where Reuben went, because he's not part of this conversation. We'll find that in a little bit. But they see the caravan as they're eating. They take time to eat, and you go, wait a minute. If we just kill them, what gain do we have? Okay, well, that satisfies their anger. But what's the gain for us? And then we can sell them. Because they see the merchant coming through. We can sell them and we can get rid of them and make some money. That'll work for us. Then the Midianite traders passed by. So they pulled him up and lifted Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. Thus they brought Joseph into Egypt. Then Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, so he tore his garments. Then he returned to his brothers and said, the boy is not there. As for me, where am I to go? So Reuben obviously isn't with them when they're eating. He's not with them when they're selling him to the Midianites, as the traders. But he finds his opportunity. He goes back to the pit. And he goes to lift Joseph out, and then the pit is empty. And now he's not, what's going to come up to me? What's going to happen with me? He's not there. I have nothing to return. We can't return him to Dad now. How do we go forward? And so they take his multicolored tunic. It says, and they slaughtered a male goat and dipped the tunic in its blood. And they sent the varicolored tunic and brought it to their father and said, we found this. Please recognize it, whether it is your son's tunic or not. And he recognized it and said, it is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces. So Jacob tore his clothes and put his sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. Then all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. He said, surely I will go down to Sheol in mourning for my son. So his father wept for him. So they take the colored tunic and they cover it in blood. And they bring it to Joseph. I'm wondering, where's the musings of the dream? Does Jacob even remember the dream? To give him cause for pause, maybe there's something more to this. His brothers come in, whom he's hated, and is that very hard for them to understand, for him to understand? There may be something, they could have done something, but there's no challenge. They just come in together and say, he's dead. We just found his tunic. And he takes the tunic and he looks at it and he mourns. He grieves over the loss of Joseph. But we see God through all this struggle. We see his hand in there, because here come the traders, and it's the rescue of Joseph. We don't see God's plan. God saw his plan. The brothers knew what they had in mind, and they didn't even understand as they changed their thought from let's just murder him to where's the profit in it for us. They change that plan and they go like, hey, let's make some money out of this as we're doing it. And they sell him. They walk into the plan of God. God works. It's not, the providential concern of God, the care of God, is being satisfied. God's plan is going to come to fruition. Sinful man cannot change God's heart. He can't change God's mind. And we certainly won't change God's plans, because God's going to work through our actions to bring his plan to fruition. And he does that through the traders. Joseph is gone. He's on his way to Egypt. His brothers are 20 shekels of silver richer. His dad is in mourning. And it seems like, for Israel at least, there is no hope. We get there. Sometimes we have kids that get sick. And we have a hard time with that. Cody and I were at the bank the other day, and the lady who was taking care of the account was talking about her husband, how he had cancer, and he had finished his last treatment, but the last treatment, he got burns from the treatment. And she just asked us if we would pray for him. And I asked her if she wanted me there. And I prayed then. And I prayed for his well-being and his healing, and I prayed for their reunion and the celebration of that. But after that prayer, and on the way home, I was angry with myself. Because I prayed half a prayer. Because I didn't look for God's hand in what was going on. He didn't give this guy necessarily cancer so that somebody would pray for him and he would be seen by strangers and known by strangers and prayed for by strangers and go like, yeah, that's good enough. Maybe, and that's what I continued my prayer on the way home with, maybe he has a reason. God gave him cancer so that he could get into the cancer unit. Maybe he gave him the burning so he can get into the other unit over there to take care of the burns from the cancer treatment. Maybe his purpose is going forward through this guy with his illness is so that he has the opportunity to tell others about God. My prayer should have continued with the woman that if it is God's chance that he has given him the cancer, then let him understand the opportunity he's given. Let him give the praise of God to those people that are in that room, to the doctors who don't hear, who are too busy to come to worship, who have no faith other than in their own hands or in their own medical training. God has a purpose. He put that man on a track over there to get him into a position to fulfill his purpose. And even now, I still pray wrong because I'm not looking for God's hand in the illness, but I'm looking for him to be removed from the illness without regard to God's plan. And that's wrong. To pray for his healing is not wrong. But to pray for his healing as opposed to outside of God's plan is. Jacob had an opportunity, but I don't know that he took it. The last verse in 37 reads that, meanwhile, the Midianites sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, Pharaoh's officer, the captain of the bodyguard. We know Joseph's story. We've read it. And for any that haven't read the Bible, if they just grew up in Sunday school classes, have heard the story. God closes us out with a word to us showing that he's in charge. He's engaged. He has a purpose and a plan, and it is going to come to fruition. And we have the foreknowledge because we've read it before, but he is letting, for the first time reader, he's letting him know that he's gone forward. Look for something else to come. The brothers don't know where he's being sold to, who he's being sold to. They just know he's gone. Jacob just thinks he's dead. But God's telling us he's on his way. Got a plan, and it's going to happen. As I was reading and contemplating all these things, it reminded me of another story, of a story of one that came. He came with a purpose, and we did not want to hear the purpose. Despite any signs that he showed, the thousands that he healed, the people refused to receive the truth of what he didn't meet their expectation or their want. He came to do a job. He came according to God's plan. We wanted to shut it out. There's parables in the Bible about the wicked landowners. God saved Joseph that he might rescue Israel. Similar circumstance. But God let Jesus die that he might save all of humanity. We can't look to the Bible and say, wow, I'm in this circumstance, so I should expect this to happen. We can't look to each other, our neighbor. We can both be going through exactly the same trial. And we see that the neighbor, yay, they were healed and they were made better, and then we find that ours is not. Ours is past. I mean, God, Lord, why? God has a plan. And his plans go beyond our understanding. And in our sinful mind, we can't comprehend those plans. In our sinful mind, we don't often even look for those plans. I don't look for those plans in everything that goes on in my life. But God's plans are not thwarted by my lack of forethought. God's plans will go forward for our good and for his glory. So what stories are going on in your lives today? Have you blindly raised it as something that you didn't understand? Have you looked into any of the events to see if you could see God's hands at work? There's a lot for us to look at and to learn from these verses, these encounters between Joseph and his brothers. The verses I first looked at, the first time I read them, I'm going like, what am I going to talk about? What is there to explain in these verses? They seem almost superficial. But the more I read the verses, the more I thought, there's not enough time to tell of everything there is to know. Everything that God's trying to reveal in these verses. Not just for the family of Jacob. Not just to prepare us for the coming Christ. But for us to walk in our lives today. Because God, there is no shadow of changing with him. He goes according to his good will, and it is for his good purposes and his glory. Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, I thank you for these 31, 32 verses. They seem so simple the first time my eyes laid upon them, and yet I have come to see that there is more than I could ever possibly understand. Help me get the fullness. Help us get the fullness of what we are reading. These are not just stories for us to hear, but these are stories for us to understand, to learn from, and to grow in and grow from. Help us, Father, as we walk according to your will, to look for you, for your work, for your way, for your plan in our lives. Receiving even the difficult trials from your hand, knowing that there is a purpose for them, that you're not intending them for our harm, but you're intending them for our good. And help us to receive the understanding of those, to give testimony of our lives to those around us who are enduring the same kind of trials but don't know where to turn and don't know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that you will comfort them through all their trials and carry them through until the day of their joy. We love you, Father, and it's in your Son's precious name we pray. Amen.